So this is the 1550 hours GMT edition of the Khoodeelaar television channel, broadcasting only on the internet under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo editions. This is part A, being broadcast at 1550 hours GMT, timed at 1550 hours GMT on Saturday, the 22nd of April 2023. The first thing to refer to is, of course, the racist British media referring to the murder of Stephen Lawrence by a gang of racists in a place called Eltham in South London, Southeast London, on 22nd of April 1993. Now, a few months later, after the murder of Stephen Lawrence, and in the first 8 days of September 1993, another racist gang nearly murdered an Asian youth aged 17. Not very similar, not very far from the age of Stephen Lawrence. Now, that other near murder took place in Commercial Road, a few hundred yards from my home in New Road, London E1, 1HE at the time. So we shall be talking about Stephen Lawrence, and this, of course, will be an introductory discussion because there are so many items and aspects to go over. So this is the 22nd of April 2023, and we are noting the reference to Stephen Lawrence's murder on the 22nd of April 1993 by the British racist media. Now, how is that possible? If the British media are racist, then how can they be referring to Stephen Lawrence? And that's the part of the intrigue. We shall be talking about that. The black teenager's family was joined by the Labour leader Keir Starmer and Mayor of London Sadiq Khan at the memorial. That is 48 minutes ago. This is a post on the independent.co.uk website. And Doreen Lawrence, Stephen's mum, is being pictured with these people attending a memorial service on Martin in the Fields in Trafalgar Square. Stephen Lawrence's mother said his story remains as important and relevant as ever. As a memorial service was held in central London to mark the 30th anniversary of the teenager's death. Well, it's not a death, it's murder. The murder victim's family gathered for the anniversary at St. Martin in the Fields Church in Trafalgar Square on Saturday. Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer and Mayor of London Sadiq Khan also attended. Keir made a short speech and read a poem by Maya Angelou at the request of Stephen's mother, Baroness Doreen Lawrence. Now, I'm already reading the stuff. I'm not necessarily reading these titles by agreeing with the titles like Baroness and Sir Keir Starmer. The anniversary comes after Metropolitan Police Commissioner Mark Rowley apologized for failings in the aftermath of the killing. With the Metropolitan Police Force's response to the investigation being branded institutional racist in the 1999 Macpherson report. Now, that is a complete racist stupidity and lie. The branding, this word is wrong because it wasn't branded institutional racist. Macpherson himself was a racist, and during the initial period of his so-called inquiry into Stephen Lawrence's murder and the role of the police, Macpherson dedicated too much time in his efforts to take away the blame from the racist individual police. And he successfully implemented the two words institutional racist instead of the racist. So that's the first note, which we shall be elaborating on in due course, of course, but this is an introductory reference. Stephen was stabbed to death on 22nd of April 1993. Now, this is a stupid sentence. Stephen was stabbed to death on April 22nd, 1993. Notice this, in an unprovoked, racially motivated attack. Now, why should there be any reference to provocation or not provocation? He was murdered by racist gang at the bus stop. What could he possibly do that would be amounting to his provoking? Except that even the Independent today, on the 30th sort of anniversary of the murder, is still presuming that Stephen Lawrence might represent a provocation to a gang of racist murderers by just being himself, just being at the bus stop. Listen to the rest of the fucking paragraph. It's after he was set upon by a gang of white youths shouting racial slurs. Fuck them. Fuck the fucking Independent. What do you mean by racial slurs? They were at the same time brandishing weapons. Clearly, that racist gang was armed with weapons and looking for a black person to murder. But that is not the way that the paragraph is written. Now listen to the next paragraph. Fuck off the fucking Independent. They say they bungled original investigation. Fuck them. They didn't bungle it. They fucking did not bungle it. They deliberately neglected to take into speedy account all the evidence and to behave speedily, and they would have, within literally days, they would have got the racist murderers and they would have got them prosecuted. It says the bungled original investigation. So the Independent is saying that the investigation was bungled. That is the main thing. It was a bungling. It wasn't racism. That was the main reason why the police allowed the racists to get away. And then racism is only a part. How contradictory, you fucking morons. And then there, this is the second paragraph, remember? So if I read the second paragraph in full, you can see how many prevarications, how many ways they are trying to fail to identify the racists as racists in the police. So read that again. The bungled original investigation hampered by racism and the alleged police corruption. Now this is the Independent publishing this sentence. Months after Louis Casey published the report into police corruption. So why does the fucking Independent use the phrase alleged police corruption? Why not say just say police corruption? And then it says it took nearly 20 years for two of the 18-year-olds' five killers to be brought to justice, with three never prosecuted. Now, they were never brought to justice, even the two. So let's check what the Casey says about corruption in the Metropolitan Police, because this is the Metropolitan Police that was involved. So this review, Casey review, published in March, only last month, has got corruption. It says the review, that is the Louis Casey review of the Metropolitan Police, has seen evidence that the Metropolitan Police are willing to consider that procedural mistakes and policy breaches may be committed by the officers in relation to their action towards black children. However, the review, that is the Casey review, has also seen an unwillingness inside the Metropolitan Police to interrogate whether there are broader issues around race, desensitization, and systemic bias towards black children. So there is a quote from somebody: it's more incompetence rather than a deliberate act. It is not institutional racism or corruption, it is incompetence. Despite extensive guidance, it does not appear that this issue is viewed as a corruption issue, which needs to be tackled strategically and structurally within the Metropolitan Police. The extensive to explore further how the misconduct system works in relation to police perpetrators of domestic abuse and sexual misconduct, we reviewed the Metropolitan Police's investigation five into live and historic cases. Corruption appears anyway, there is a lot of references in the Louis case review to corruption, various aspects of corruption in the police. And so for the Independent today, 22nd of April 2023, to even use the phrase alleged police corruption means that they are in denial of the very moderate findings reported by Louis Casey. The date of his death is now marked by Stephen Lawrence Day each year. Keir told the memorial that contrasted against the very worst side of Britain, Stephen represented the best. As he lamented the loss of a life which shone with light of potential. Now, what the fuck does Keir Starmer know about what Stephen Lawrence was like? He's only appearing for publicity. And then the Independent dishonestly says that Starmer was Director of Public Prosecutions when two of Mr. Lawrence's killers were brought to justice. They were not. Speaking outside the church, Sadiq Khan continued his assertion that the Metropolitan Police Service remains institutionally racist. Now, the Independent is like putting it as a kind of push against Sadiq Khan. His assertion. It's as if Sadiq Khan is the only one who has said that. The Metropolitan Police has always been a racist police organization. but it is degenerating into something even worse, a racist and fascist organization with impunity. When the police in post are kidnapping, raping, murdering, and torturing, and burning the bodies of their victims, as happened to Sarah Everard. So they're mentioning Sadiq Khan there in a bit more detail than they have done Keir Starmer. So this piece, despite the fact that they've done that, the Independent, it is still a racist article. A racist article in denial of the corruption and criminality that dominate the London Metropolitan Police. And this sounds like a propaganda event. The heading says Stephen Lawrence's legacy honored at memorial 30 years after his racist murder. What legacy? Stephen Lawrence didn't have any legacy to leave. He was a victim of murder. So to elevate him to a status of some kind of campaigner, he wasn't known as a campaigner. Full stop. The campaigns have been done by other people in solidarity with his parents after Stephen was murdered. So this is something that is completely corrupt. Taking into account what the Independent website is quoting Sadiq Khan as saying, The question is Sadiq Khan going to use his position as the incumbent in the post of the Mayor of London? This is the thing that I want to stress in the quotes by the Independent. Sadiq Khan is reported as saying, for those of us who are people of color, why the fuck? Why not say African and Asian? It had a ripple effect on us, ripples of hate, but also the appalling way that the family was let down by the Metropolitan Police Service, by the media, and by some politicians. Notice the way he's measuring his script. 30 years on, we have not made the progress we'd hoped to have made now. This is something, this, this cretin is supposed to be a lawyer, licensed law trader, as is the cretin Keir Starmer. Haven't the fuckers ever heard of the international treaties? Because the United Kingdom, being a nefariously imperialistic violator of other people's liberties and rights and territories and so on, has got a domestic legal regime that is not good enough to safeguard ordinary people, white people, mainly ordinary white people, the so-called indigenous white majority. So by definition, all these international treaties, declarations, charters, and agreements are very significant contributors to the creation in Britain by the British state of those operating structures and procedures whereby the ordinary persons get the protection that they deserve and they need, and the access to the protection that ordinary people deserve from violence, from denial of their rights, is guaranteed by the intervention of the state, locally, regionally, and centrally in the United Kingdom. But there is no mention of any of that. There is no mention of any of that in what Keir Starmer has had to say. And following him, what Sadiq Khan has said outside the church, according to the Independent. And the Independent itself, in the report, is not referring to any of these charters, agreements, treaties, declarations. And I keep going back to the declaration, especially the declaration, the founding declarations for the United Nations in the 1940s are so important for a backward, corrupt, and very racist country like the United Kingdom, that anyone who says anything similar to what Sadiq Khan has said, and I'll read that again. 30 years on, we have not made the progress we'd hope to have made. Now, that progress has not been made precisely because of the lack of application of the requirements of those treaties, declarations, agreements, and charters that the United Kingdom signed up to. And as a trained lawyer, so called licensed law trader, the cretin Sadiq Khan should know that. So why isn't the fucker mentioning that? He goes back to prostrating himself before the racist Louise Casey. Because Louise Casey is a racist, despite the fact that she has now kind of appropriated the Metropolitan Police as part of her kind of remit. And Sadiq Khan says it's really important that we recognize that 30 years on, Dame Louise Casey has found the Metropolitan Police still read that again. It's really important that we recognize that 30 years on, Dame Louise Casey has found the Metropolitan Police to still be institutional racist. We can't ignore that or equivocate on that. We've got to make progress. Now, what the fuck does he mean? Why does he need Louise Casey? Has he not heard of any black people in London? Has he not heard anyone of African or Asian backgrounds in London talking about their experience of the police? Why does he need Louise Casey to tell him what is happening? Has he not found what being the chair of the Metropolitan Police Authority, which is what he is, has taught him? What has he tried to do as the what is called ex officio chair of the Metropolitan Police Authority? Because he is the incumbent in post as the mayor at the expense of London. What has he found? Now, the police commissioner now, who is Mark Rowley, is quoted as saying, a failure to robustly confront cultural and systemic failings which were exposed by the forces' response to the murder had undermined its ability to fight crime. And Mark Rowley pledged to finally make the Met determinedly anti-racist. How the fuck is he going to do that? Has he got any clue as to what being anti-racist even means? None of the people mentioned, including Stephen's mom, Doreen Lawrence, in this piece, is doing anything at all to report the racism that dominates the London Metropolitan Police, the racism that dominates the British media, the racism that dominates the British Parliament, the racism that is the British UK central government state, and the pro-racist complicity that is rampant in the local councils, regardless of who the council's front person is. For example, because there is nothing in this piece item by the Independent, and I extrapolate from that similar items in the Guardian, which is the nearest kind of outlet that will have a similar approach. The Times or the Sunday Times, the Telegraph would not have the similar approach at all. But the Independent and the Guardian are themselves festering in racist stupidity and racist ignorance of the most monumental description, because these two outlets, the Independent and the Guardian, are supposedly enlightened as compared to the Telegraph or the Times or the Daily Mail, etc. And as they are supposed to be enlightened, they are most certainly kind of under obligation to really refer to and revisit the United Kingdom's obligations under and according to the internationally signed treaties, declarations, charters, and agreements. It is stupid, full stop. It is stupid to say that Stephen Lawrence's legacies are the point here. Stephen Lawrence has left no legacy. He was not in a position to leave a legacy. What has been created is a kind of reminder to the brutality of the racist state that has been the product of many of the people who campaigned against racist murders, racist injustice, and campaigned against the racist police defiance of their duties. I mean, what a pathetic thing to say for somebody who is incumbent in the post of mayor at the expense of London. 30 years on, we haven't made the progress that we hope to make. He knows, he should know what have been the actual factors hampering, hindering, and obstructing. Why not? Why hasn't the incumbent mayor at the expense of London, Sadiq Khan, ordered the London Metropolitan Police to make available to him all the evidence of its behavior, the police's behavior? Number one, about what the police did after Stephen Lawrence was murdered, and how many people made information available to the police, and what did the Metropolitan Police do to the information that they were sent. That's number one. Number two is that as the incumbent mayor, he can demand the publication of all the communications that took place between the first incumbent mayor at the expense of London, Ken Livingston Livingstone, who was in post for two 4-year terms. So Livingstone was in post for 2000 to 2008, and he was followed by Boris Johnson, who was in post from 2008 to 2016. So those 16 years, the London Metropolitan Police became, if you like, identifiable as the London Metropolitan Police Authority for the purpose of the incumbent in the post of mayor. Why can't Sadiq Khan publish all the data that transpired between Ken Livingston Livingstone and the Metropolitan Police, and the same between Boris Johnson and the Metropolitan Police between 2000 and 2016? About Stephen Lawrence's murder, about the reports of racist attacks that were made known to the Metropolitan Police by victims and other people interested in the bringing to justice of the attackers, and about the crimes against women and against other people. Has Sadiq Khan done that? It most certainly hasn't. Has any of the media done that? Questions that I'm asking. Has the Independent or the Guardian or the Observer, so called, asked this question? Answer is no. Why hasn't any step being taken in the 16 years before since the creation of the post of the mayor of London and the description of the London Metropolitan Police Authority? And what has he done himself? How many questions has Sadiq Khan, as the chair of the London Metropolitan Police Authority, how many questions has he asked since he became elected to the post in 2016? So this is now 2023. 7 years, calendar years. What has Sadiq Khan done? I don't believe that Sadiq Khan has done anything to draw attention to the police and their duties. The fact that he is referring to Louis Casey as the source of his knowledge about the Metropolitan Police shows that he has no knowledge about the Metropolitan Police, despite the fact that he is the one who should have known more, much more, than Louis Casey. He is the chair of the London Metropolitan Police Authority. Now, if we move on to the local councils, and to other areas of public life, we can find that there is no evidence of the London Metropolitan Police being held to account. Why is it important that the police be held to account? The answer is that the police are allowed the maximum power over the ordinary citizens. And the fact that the police, the London Metropolitan Police, is rotten to the core, according to the admission by the police themselves, shows that the police or policing doesn't exist. So, going back to the role of the judiciary, how many cases have been brought to various stages of the court system about police misconduct, police criminality? That is an indicator of what is going on with the police powers and the police abuse of powers. The fact that this is not part of the news coverage in the Independent or the Guardian shows that these two outlets, not only do they not care about the international treaty organizations, treaty obligations, but that they don't actually bother about the domestic legal obligations that exist on the police to behave in accordance with the law and deliver protection and justice and prevention of crime and criminality. If there is any strong legacy to talk about, it is the legacy of those victims, the uncounted numbers of women that have been raped by the police, and the uncounted numbers of the women that have been raped by other criminals who have got away because the police have allowed them to get away. And it goes on. So we shall be talking about all of these in detail. This is just an introduction. And as I said, Stephen Lawrence has left no legacy. The legacy that is existing is in the amount and the quality and the volume of activities, if these exist, done by people who have been campaigning for justice for Stephen Lawrence as well as for justice for the other victims of racist attacks at various forms. The racist murder racist murders of Al-Tabali in May 1978 and of Ishaq Ali in July 1978 were not followed by real, rigorous anti-racist prosecutions of their murderers. Now, if you reverse the kind of picture and look at the other crimes that the police have been themselves involved in committing, then you can understand why there is a reluctance on the part of the media, the politicians, to get involved in demanding action against racists, actions that are overdue, have been overdue. Because the amount of intense criminality perpetrated by the London Metropolitan Police is so thick and so dense that it is humanly beyond the capacity of individual members of parliament or individual members of a local council to get to the bottom of the amount of criminality that is going on locally as committed by the local police. And the role of the judiciary is that it has washed its hands. There is no case, there is no record of any court in the United Kingdom at any level, the district level, the High Court level, the Court of Appeal level, or the Supreme Court level, that any decision has been made about police criminality, police racism, police rape. Not a single case, including the case of the murderer, torturer of Sarah Barad. No case exists that has gone through the court system that has actually been covered by the media paying attention, paying express and particular attention to the statutory duties the police have to protect the people, let alone the duties the police owe the community, ordinary people, as per the international agreements, charters, declarations, and treaties that the United Kingdom signed and remains signed up to. And the fact that the independent newspaper has run this story today, which is so completely pathetic, it says that the police bungled and that the allegation of corruption against the police are mere allegations. That shows that the United Kingdom is supposed to have an independent organ of state called the judiciary, independent organ of the state called the media, the fourth estate, so called. But these are not only not independent, they don't even exist when it comes to applying the tests and seeking the accountability and transparency from the police. So those morons who say that Stephen Lawrence has left a legacy, what exact event are they referring to? They cannot possibly refer to any event, anything. Because suppose he was alive when he proceeded to become as they said later, he was trying to become an architect. He might have become an architect. That's it. His becoming an architect would not necessarily start a campaign, an institutional change to the racist structure and the behavior of the individual police and the collective police in London, or for that matter, in the rest of the English councils. We have absolutely any number of cases showing that the local councils are dysfunctional. The local police are, to say the least, non existent. And the local MPs and councillors are totally dysfunctional, unfit for purpose, negligent. And the UK central government is totally corrupt. The events of the last 48 hours concerning Dominic Raab and his resignation, what do they represent? What do these events represent? Because Dominic Raab has said that he has resigned after he read the inquiry report done by Adam Tolley, King's Counsel, so called, which reports that two of the allegations against him, Dominic Raab, were proven, substantiated. And having said that, Raab then says that the other complaints were not substantiated or proven. Missing the point. If even one of the allegations against him were proven and substantiated, he would still have to go. The fact that he says that the other allegations were not proven shows that he does not intend, to accept his bullying records as being truthfully reported by the investigator Adam Tolley. Which means that he can only do that. Dominic Raab, he can do that if there exists a parliament full of members of parliament who are prepared to let him do that. And who are prepared to support him in some cases. If they support him and if they back him, then it shows that they are supporting him in illegality and they are being corrupt. And this actually applies to the members of parliament, regardless of which party they belong to or not. The coverage of the Stephen Lawrence anniversary by the Independent is easily comparable to the coverage of the issue of Dominic Raab. And taking the example of the Guardian, which numerically has had about 10 separate full length pieces published online in the last 48 hours. Both before Raab resigned and since he resigned. If you look at the details of the allegations against Stephen Lawrence's murderers and the allegations against the police that protected the murderers, we can find some common features. And the most common aspect of the whole thing is that racists murdered Stephen Lawrence and racists protected the murderers of Stephen Lawrence. And 30 years on, racists are still making excuses for the racists who murdered Stephen Lawrence. So, what we shall be doing is to put an end to this particular edition, which has been going on for 1 hour and 2 minutes, and then we shall continue on the themes in later editions. This is being brought to an end at 16:53 hours GMT on Saturday, 22nd of April 2023.